Well, that does it for 2016's comic book movies. Does Doctor Strange come out on top as the #1 comic book movie of 2016? So Doctor Strange is the newest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This tells the story of Dr. Stephen Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a world-renowned surgeon. He gets into a car accident, loses the ability to use his hands and to practice medicine. And while seeking out alternate means to heal himself, he ends up coming across the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, who teaches him the mystic arts. So right out of the gate, this is one of the most unique films that Marvel Studios has brought us yet. This is very similar to what they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, bringing a property and a character that not a whole lot of people are familiar with. A lot of different tones, a lot of different styles going on than you're used to in a typical superhero movie. But where Guardians of the Galaxy succeeded a lot in being very accessible to all audiences and pretty much won everybody over with how fun and entertaining that movie is, I feel like Doctor Strange is going to be the one MCU movie so far that's going to really divide a lot of people. You're going to have a lot of people walk into this movie that's going to absolutely love how off the wall and bizarre this thing is, and you're going to have just as many people who walk in and this movie is just a bit too strange. One thing that I need to praise this movie above anything else is the special effects, because holy shit, this movie is a technological marvel. Okay, I promise that was the last pun. Or is it? But seriously, the special effects in this movie and the way that they take a lot of the directions with showing all the different dimensions and the astral projection and time manipulation and the world to kind of folding in onto itself was absolutely incredible to watch. You know those scenes in Inception that everybody was losing their minds over when that movie came out, with the city kind of folding onto itself or the walls kind of spinning around and gravity being manipulated and they're walking up the walls and the ceilings? Imagine an entire movie of that. Whoever the hell was in charge of the special effects of this movie deserves a medal or a small country somewhere, because I can just imagine when Marvel walked in and they put the storyboards down and said, "This is what we need you to do," that guy was probably just like, "You want me to do what?" Going beyond all the special effects, Benedict Cumberbatch does a great job at playing Stephen Strange. He delivers another great performance in this movie. I really enjoyed his performance in the first third of this movie before he started getting all of his powers, especially because he really portrayed well this doctor who is so arrogant and so high on life that he just feels like he's invincible and nothing can touch him. Another great performance in this movie was Tilda Swinton, who plays the Ancient One. She's kind of like the Sorcerer Supreme. She's basically the Morpheus of this movie. There was a lot of controversy surrounding her casting. Everybody was screaming whitewashing. A lot of the real hardcore comic fans were pissed, saying this is an Asian male character, this is not a white female character. What are you doing? Why don't you have an Asian actor playing this? But you know what? This is the actress that Marvel chose. This is the direction that they wanted to go in. And I can tell you after watching the movie that Tilda Swinton does a great job, and the Ancient One is probably the most memorable character in this movie. The other big name stars you have rounding out your cast, you got Chiwetel Ejiofor, Mads Mikkelsen, and Rachel McAdams. And we'll get to them in a little bit. Now, as far as the negatives in this movie, we'll start by talking about the story. It's a very typical Marvel origin story. There's not really any surprises here. There's not really any chances taken with the story. There's no directions it goes that you don't see coming from the beginning of this movie. And it's just a very formulaic first outing for a Marvel character. You got a character that goes through this tragic situation, so it puts them on the path of trying to solve that tragic situation, which then puts them on a path to getting superpowers. And then once they get the superpowers, they're trying to learn their new powers. Bad guy shows up, they have to fight the bad guy, and now they're the big boy on the streets. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I can commend Marvel for bringing us such a different shade of their cinematic universe with this movie, with introducing crazy mystic art things like astral projection and time travel and all the wild things I've already been talking about. But unfortunately, as new and fresh as those ideas are to bring to this superhero universe, it still feels like something we've already seen before, because they stick so close to their formula. Rachel McAdams plays a doctor who is basically like Stephen Strange's love interest in this. It serves no purpose in this movie whatsoever, but because this is a Marvel movie, they feel like they have to throw some kind of a love interest in there because that's their formula, and it just does no favors to this movie. It gets in the way, it's distracting. There's a few little good scenes here and there because they do have good chemistry with each other, but in the end, it just doesn't go anywhere. All the screen time that they dedicate to this weak love interest, they could have put much better use by putting more screen time on Mads Mikkelsen's villain, which is yet another Marvel villain that gets very little screen time in this. You barely care about them, you're not really intimidated by them, and yet another Marvel villain that just gets tossed aside as being unmemorable. And also Chiwetel Ejiofor's character of Mordo, who they're obviously building up to be a villain in later films. I'm not a Doctor Strange reader, but From what I can tell, he's probably going to be the arch nemesis of Doctor Strange. Correct me down below if I'm wrong. And they don't really give him any kind of development. He's here, he's in a couple of scenes, he's in the background waiting for Doctor Strange to do something, and he's there to help him fight. But beyond that, you really don't get to know the guy. And whenever he kind of starts to show some darker shades, like he's eventually going to turn against Doctor Strange, you really don't feel a whole lot for it because we barely got to know him in the first place. Another chunk of the Marvel formula that doesn't quite work in Doctor Strange as well as it's worked for me in their previous movies is the humor. There's a lot of good one-liners, there's a lot of good funny scenes in this movie, but I would say at least half of them, it feels like the movie has to pause, deliver their one-liner or their funny joke, and then the movie continues. You can tell that, this movie takes a lot of elements from horror movies and a lot of really strange sci-fi movies. So you can tell that when they probably had this movie on the cutting room floor, they're like, this needs to be lighter, because Marvel likes their movies really light and fun, but it doesn't quite gel as well as it has in their other movies. It feels very inserted. It feels like they're just busting off one-liners left and right, and you're like, how serious am I supposed to be taking this story, guys? Because you're not taking it too seriously. You're just joking around. Another thing that unfortunately gets in its way too, as amazing as the special effects are when they're bringing all these different mystic arts to life, it really gets confusing by the end of the movie because all these things start happening at once. Like I've mentioned numerous times, astral projection, time travel, world-changing things like reality-changing, dimension-changing. It's all going on and going in front of your face all at once, and you really lose track of what the hell is going on in this movie. And unfortunately, a side effect of that is when you're watching the last third or so of this movie, there's so much going on, there's so many moving parts, there's so many things flashing in front of you on the screen that you really lose your engagement in the story, and you lose all the stakes because you just kind of find yourself on autopilot watching a bunch of visual noise, and you lose all sense that you're building up to a conclusion because it's like 30 straight minutes of a movie that just dropped acid and took a ride in a washing machine. Alright guys, so to wrap up Doctor Strange, this is a new addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a very welcome addition. I like the character of Doctor Strange. I like the world that they're starting to introduce us to. It opens up a lot of very strange possibilities for the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward into Phase 4. However, I feel like Marvel really needs to make more attempts to stray away from their formula because it's starting to feel a little bit dry and a little bit burnt out that they're just sticking to the same story beats and the same little inserts that they always put in all of their movies, and they're not taking enough chances. This is a world that you're not used to for a superhero movie, but this is a story that you are very used to. To me, this is definitely not amongst Marvel's best movies. However, with the amazing special effects that this movie has, I definitely recommend going to see this in theaters, but make sure that you go see it at a matinee price. So what did you guys think of Doctor Strange? Are you a big Marvel Cinematic Universe fan? Is this a new world that you love exploring, or is this a little bit stale and a little bit formulaic like I thought it was? Put all your thoughts on this movie down below in the comment section, and let's talk about it. Like and share this video, and please hit that subscribe button. That way you get to come back and see me next time. But if that's not soon enough to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.